Hi everyone. People are always asking me, how do you stay so healthy and fit, especially as you approach the age of 70, which will happen in a few months. So I'd like to share with you some of my best practices in hopes that it will help you avoid the pain and suffering I have seen so much of in my life. I was the youngest in my family. My sisters were 9 and 11 years older than me, so I had a lifetime to figure out what I didn't want to happen to me. They all had diabetes and heart disease, and my mom, aunt, and both sisters had breast cancer, so much so I'm the only adult female without. We were part of the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene studies. So like everybody else my age in my 20s, and some people have asked, why don't you tell us what it was like in your 20s and going forward, compare that to how life has been in your 60s. So I did all the fad diets. At the time, it was the Stillman diet, which was the precursor to the Atkins diet. I did Atkins twice. That works in the short term, but often at the expense of your heart and your cholesterol. And I now have a high cardiac calcium score, which doctors believe is from the high protein diets, in addition to some bad genes that now they've tested for. So there is that. But genes do not control destiny, and that's always how I live my life. I had to wait till Medicare till I could actually get tested myself for the breast cancer gene, and I am the only adult female without it that we know of. The other two of the cases in our family, they do believe, because they were late in life, were environmentally triggered and not genetic. Only 10% of all cases, breast cancer cases, are genetic. So there is much you can do, and I did all those high protein diets to keep my weight down because I saw my sister in her 20s get gestational diabetes and it never went away. But we lived a block away from the best bakery in St. Louis, so we were always eating high sugar, high fat, gooey butter cakes for breakfast and deep butter cake for dessert and dinner. So I knew what I didn't want to happen. Of course, doctors back then were telling my parents to go ahead and smoke because it is relaxing. And the doctors themselves smoked, which speak to the fact that even still today, doctors don't often get a single nutrition class in medical school. So that's why I tell people you have to be your own investigative reporter, like I was in TV news, to figure out the truth about food. But I look back on my behavior, and you have to forgive your transgressions, your mistakes. We all make mistakes. And what I would encourage you to do is listen to the gurus out there, the doctors, the dietitians, and the athletes who have been doing this for decades and have been doing it successfully. That doesn't mean there haven't been pitfalls. My epiphany in my 20s was that I almost died of a colon blockage. I collapsed in the newsroom, and two of my colleagues had to come fish me out of literally the toilet in the TV station and rushed me to the emergency room. And the doctor said they'd never seen a colon blockage that large in somebody so young, and I would need to be on medication the rest of my life. So I ran to the health food store and read all 5 books on fiber, because that's all there was, and changed my diet. I went vegetarian, first macrobiotic, because that was an anti-cancer diet, mainly vegan, except that it included white fish and was very restrictive in the rules. You could only eat according to your latitude, so I couldn't eat citrus because I lived up north. You could only eat foods in season, things that do make sense. But what I took away from that was being vegetarian was the next step, and then vegan, which made so much more sense, and I felt so much healthier. So I didn't die of a heart attack, or almost die of a heart attack. I almost died of a colon blockage, and that's what many of us really need to focus on is, vegans, we don't have a protein deficiency. And I was the only woman in my age group at the National Senior Games to compete in all 7 track events and placed in 3 of them. So I'm doing good. And part of that I attribute is just asking the questions that I have asked for decades and encourage you to do so. What did Mother Nature intend? What did our ancestors really do? I wrote Paleo Vegan, my 3rd book, to really demand that vegans take back the word paleo. And sure enough, National Geographic, in a cover story a year later called The Real Paleo Diet, quoted out of my book, not by attribution, but said the same things I did. It's not like a wild boar ever was running through our backyard 3 times a day and we could catch it successfully without dying. the moms who stayed at home while the men were out hunting the elusive buffalo or whatever were eating mainly nuts, seeds, and plants of all kinds. So we can do fine. We don't need to be borrowing milk from another species. Our own human milk is best for our offspring. And I became a breastfeeding instructor for La Leche League because breastfeeding helps women not only avoid breast cancer for themselves, but in female offspring as well. I think it's also important to socialize, hang with a group of people, especially if your family of origin doesn't get you. You can choose your chosen family and be sure you have connections not only on social media, but beyond as well. And of course, exercising. Find some kind of exercise, whether it's at the gym. I know the gyms are a little, we kind of go back and forth with COVID. Do we really want to be in close quarters? I'm starting to see more people mask up again now, but however you decide to do that, there are parks around here in Florida that are building pickleball courts like crazy because that is a very popular sport, although my physical therapist said I'm seeing a lot of people with injuries from that. So whatever sport you pick, make sure you've got proper instruction, proper shoes, and just, that you're doing it correctly because you will pay the price. Even things like cycling, doing spin classes in a gym are really good. They really burn a lot of calories, but you got to do it right. You got to make the adjustments to the seat and the pedals so that you don't end up with repetitive motion injuries. And that's one of the things, by running outside, you get a varying degree of terrain. I try and mix it up. And I've been a runner for 41 years, the same year that I went vegan. My progression, by the way, was first vegan, after coming off of the macrobiotic diet. I befriended a woman who worked at a health food store, and she really guided me in many ways that I couldn't have figured out for myself how to go vegan. So it was a process. It wasn't an overnight kind of thing. But once I went vegan, I felt so much better, and I was able to keep up my running and improve my distances that I was doing. I've done 2 full marathons and 13 half marathons, something that most people with my sprint times, I'm told, shouldn't have even been able to do, let alone I actually placed in 1 half marathon. So, going vegan helped me improve my energy so much. I was drinking like 11 cups of coffee in my 20s in the newsroom. I mean, these were these little vending machine types of cups, but, I needed that to stay alert. And now, I'll have an occasional cup of green tea or coffee just because it tastes good. And if I have a special project I want to be super, super alert for, I'll have a cup, but nothing like I did in my 20s. Finding exercise that is fun for you, it doesn't have to, it can be just walking, and there's no shame in just walking. I started out walking before, and most of us do, in running, and I picked up my percentage of running during my times, and I still take walk breaks, even during a 5K, especially as hot as it is. So it's important just to find things that motivate you, like a race, even if you're not going to break any records. It's just important to set those goals, and that's been a real important thing for me to do over the years. You can join a running club to walk. A lot of people don't realize that. In our community, there are several running clubs, and sometimes they sponsor races, but most of the time they just have training runs. The one club here in the Sarasota area has training runs almost every day of the week and at different locations to keep it convenient, and also at different times of day to accommodate people's schedules. So you can just Google that. And the other thing that I've done, I'm very old school. I love my Apple Watch now, but back in the day, I started out with just a legal pad and would actually drive my car to certain locations and check the odometer and keep track of how far I was running and how fast I was running. And now everything's on our watch, and I just love it. I also love, let's see, where are they? I'm charging them my music. Ooh. Okay, I have different kinds of earbuds, and I'm looking for I was looking for the ones that I use. I use the Apple earbuds. I use just different kinds, even these, not for running, although I have used big ones like that for running. It's whatever keeps you motivated. I never begrudge any money that is spent on fitness because It's a lot cheaper than a $100,000 bypass. All right, everyone, if you got any questions, drop them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Gotta run.